it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the things that your baker wished you knew. So let's get into it. So the first thing always comes off as super well-intentioned, but I know that us fellow bakers and cake artists and cookie artists sometimes get a little bit annoyed with this statement. So a lot of the times, especially when I was first starting out, people would often try to give me as much business as possible. And that was super greatly appreciated. With your family and friends, that's a great place to start selling cakes and cookies. So as I started getting better and I started becoming more of a business rather than someone just trying to start something up, it became a little bit off-putting when people would say this to me.
Thank you so much for making these cakes and cookies. Was it fun to do? Was it fun? Did you have fun with the order?
That's the first thing regarding fun that kind of was a little off-putting. The next thing is when people would walk into the store and just say,
"Wow, I would love to have your job. Just baking cakes and cookies all day. That must be so much fun."
And I know that you bakers out there have probably heard this being said to you. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, making cakes, cookies, and making baked goods for people that look beautiful is fun. That's why we choose the profession we choose. But saying the word fun kind of minimizes the amount of work and the level of business sense it actually takes to run a baking business. Whether you're baking from home or you actually have a storefront, we all face different challenges when it comes to actually running a baking business. So I think your baker would like you to know that although it's fun, it's not just for fun. And sometimes it can be incredibly stressful. And as somebody who has worked other types of jobs and continues to work other types of jobs, I have to say, there is no stress like having to make sure that a cake is ready on time, especially something important like a wedding cake, and making sure that all of the details are in place. That can be very stressful. And when you have more than one order to do on a day, it can be even more stressful. Regardless if you're a home baker or a storefront owner, it's not all fun and games. Thing that your baker wishes you knew is that despite the fact that we always try to deliver a delicious and fresh product, a little secret, maybe for some of you, your product is never ever going to be baked fresh. And so let's determine what the word fresh means. I know a lot of people do think that fresh should mean it was baked the day that you're eating it, but that is nearly an impossibility. And this is solely because most cake and cookie creations take more than a day's work to actually complete, especially if you're going to a bakery that has several orders at once. Even if you have lots of staff members that are going to complete things, chances are, even if the bakery staff is quite large, that means that they're taking on more orders. There is an assembly line process usually when it comes to making cakes or cookies. So the chances of your cake and cookie being made on that day and decorated on the day of your pickup are very low. And this brings me to my next point. One of the most common things that happened when I was working at a commercial bakery is somebody wanting to cancel or postpone their order with less than 24 hours notice. A lot of people think that, oh, as long as I call in the day before, I should be able to move my cake or cookie order. Unfortunately, that just isn't an accommodation that can be made. Usually bakers have a very particular schedule of when they bake their cakes or their cookies, and then they designate time to have those things decorated. And it's really important that most of the decorating process happens the day before you actually pick up. This is to ensure that if there's any mistakes or if anything should go wrong, we have that time to try and fix things. So if you only give your baker a 24 hours notice in cancellation or postponement, it's really not going to work out. So try to keep in mind that although we are making things as fresh as possible and as close to the pickup date as possible, giving 24 and even 48 hours notice is probably not enough time. Deliveries are just as scary as you think they might be. So before I started getting into the cake business, I always have had a lot of trust in companies. So, if somebody says that they're going to deliver a TV to me, for example, I have all the trust in the world that that company is going to get it to me all intact and all in one piece, and they must have fancy moving equipment to get it here all perfectly. And I do still think that rings true, but I know a lot of times when I have done risky deliveries. And what I mean by that is they're nerve-wracking, they're scary. A lot of times bakeries don't really have a super good way of transporting cakes. And they're going to try and make you as the customer feel as comfortable about it as possible. And yes, some bakeries probably really do have a really good system. Their boards are probably really strong. They probably have devices in their trunk to do deliveries. But the average person, especially those that are home bakers, don't. They just have a regular trunk like the rest of us. So a lot of times when we're delivering a 3-tiered, 4-tiered, 5-tiered cake, even cupcakes which lay flat can be very nerve-wracking. So I've said this before and I'll say it again, but anytime I'm given the option of paying for delivery for baked goods, I would take it because it is a challenging job. And this is also why deliveries do cost so much money. Not only does it take up a lot of time to actually do the driving, but it is a scary process and there's a lot of things that go into it. So if you think that deliveries don't make your baker panic, they do. The next thing that your baker probably wants you to know is that pickups are really crucial. And this is more specific to home bakers, but it's very applicable to those that own storefronts as well. If you say that you're going to pick up your cake at 11:30, for example, then especially at a commercial bakery, they're going to make sure that it's ready for 11:30. Now, going back to that other point about how we said that most bakeries do like to try and have things ready by the day before, this doesn't always happen, especially if it's something that maybe can only be done at the last minute, like edible imaging, for example. So if you say that you're going to come pick up your cake at 11:30, chances are sometimes there's going to be somebody scrambling to make sure that it is fully ready at 11:30. And if you show up at, say, 2 o'clock, it might not seem like that big of a deal. I mean, you said 11:30, but it's not like you're coming any earlier than the time that you said. You're just coming later. So I can understand the thought process there of how that isn't a big deal. However, whenever you're working with a bunch of cake orders at once, you're trying to put things in the right order. And it's kind of a game of Tetris to see where you're going to schedule things. So for example, maybe that 11:30 cake caused a really big issue and caused something else to not get done. When really, if you were going to come at 2 o'clock, they could have moved that time down and had a little bit more time to do something else that may have been just as crucial. Now, that's what it kind of looks like for a bakery storefront. For an at-home baker, the reason that those pickup times are super important is because we don't really have the luxury of waiting around all day. When you are at a storefront, of course, there's going to be staff. So staff is always going to be there within a certain time period and be able to give you your order. However, if you're at home and you're an at-home baker, chances are you're not going to be home 24/7. And even if you are at home, you might have other duties or things that you need to do. You don't have the luxury of having staff help you. Variety is the spice of life, and honestly, if I were picking up a bunch of cupcakes, I would want a variety of flavors. So I completely understand where customers are coming from when they come into a home bakery situation and ask for that. But really, it's really impossible for an at-home baker to give you a variety of cupcake flavors unless you're ordering like 24 minimum per flavor. If you are looking for a variety of flavors, then you probably just want to go to a commercial storefront. They're going to be able to do that for you super easily. And the final thing that I want to leave you with today is that your cake and cookie order is never simple. And I know that sounds strange because there are definitely simple designs out there, and this is especially prevalent when it comes to at-home bakers. There's no such thing as simple because as soon as you have to fire up the oven and get things ready and then make your buttercreams all by yourself, that negates all of the simplicity. I've had a lot of times too where I was on the phone with customers at the commercial bakery that I worked at, and they would say, I just want a really, really simple cake. And then before you know it, the cake they're describing is hundreds of dollars and tons of hours of work. Even something that's just buttercream smoothed out perfectly and has a small little decoration on top can take hours. So really, simplicity doesn't exist. In fact, like I said in previous videos, simplicity can sometimes even be harder because it takes a lot of technique to do the simple things correctly. So if you're an at-home baker or a bakery owner, I'm sure you can relate to some of those things. And if you're not, and you were just curious about what your baker wants you to know, I hope you learned something. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, but make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!